Hello and welcome back to the Sleepy Narrator. This is your time to relax, to let the pace of the day slow down, and to ease into something calm, curious, and maybe just a touch surprising. Before we move along, I'd love to know where in the world you are watching from tonight. If you enjoy these gentle explorations of science, a like and subscribe help far more than you might think. And for those of you who have already joined this little community, thank you. You're the reason I get to create these bedtime wanderings into wonder and discovery. Now, I can't promise this video won't keep you awake, but if it does, at least you'll drift off knowing a bit more about some of the most unusual creatures that ever walked the earth. There are certainly worse reasons to lose a few minutes of rest. So, what exactly makes a dinosaur unusual? Is it an enormous claw, a trumpet-shaped skull, or the ability to float through a prehistoric forest with wings on all four limbs? Let's find out together. Dinosaurs have always lived in a strange corner of our imagination. They are at once impossibly ancient, and yet oddly familiar. We think of them as monsters, as giants, as distant relatives of the animals we know today. But when you look closer, the truth is far more fascinating and often much stranger. Most people can name a few classics: the towering sharp-toothed predator, the three-horned herbivore, the plate-backed stegosaur. These are the celebrities of the Mesozoic. Yet the family tree of dinosaurs stretches wide, and hidden among its branches are species that feel like they've stepped out of a dream, or perhaps out of a surreal painting. They carried proportions that puzzle scientists, behaviors still wrapped in mystery, and adaptations so peculiar they almost seem like mistakes. Except, nature rarely creates mistakes without a purpose. Strange dinosaurs aren't just oddities. They're living proof of evolution's endless imagination. Each crest, sail, claw, or feather tells a story about survival in worlds very different from our own. Sometimes these traits were for finding food, sometimes for avoiding becoming food, and sometimes it seems simply for showing off. On this journey, we're going to wander quietly through their ancient habitats. We'll watch sunlight catch the spines of a long-necked giant. We'll listen to the haunting call of a duck-billed dinosaur's head tube echoing across a swamp. We'll drift on the breeze alongside a tiny hunter with wings on all four limbs. And as we travel, we'll see that in the dinosaur world, normal was really just a matter of perspective. So, settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin this walk among the strangest dinosaurs that ever lived. If you were to walk through a Jurassic forest more than 150 million years ago, the first thing you might notice is just how small you feel. Towering conifers and ginkgos stretch high into the sky, their canopies weaving together far above. The air is warm, damp, and alive with prehistoric creatures. Somewhere in the distance, there is the deep, deliberate creak of something massive shifting among the trees. Then, breaking through the greenery, a creature so oddly proportioned that your sense of scale would falter: Mamenchisaurus. This dinosaur is renowned for one thing above all else: its neck. Not just long, but astonishingly so. Mamenchisaurus holds the record for the longest neck of any known dinosaur, reaching nearly half the length of its entire body. Imagine a creature more than 70 feet long, with over 30 feet of that being neck alone. It's as if nature decided to stretch the limits of vertebrate design just to see how far it could go. The neck was held up by an extraordinary series of vertebrae, more than a dozen in some species, each one elongated like a stretched spool. These bones were laced with air sacs, a brilliant adaptation that kept them light while still strong. It's an elegant example of evolutionary engineering, the same type of structure birds use in their hollow bones today. Without this weight-saving trick, the neck would have been far too heavy to lift or maneuver. So what did Mamenchisaurus do with this extraordinary reach? The most obvious explanation is feeding. The Jurassic forests were lush with tall vegetation, and having a neck like a living crane meant access to a banquet that few other dinosaurs could reach. Picture it moving its head gently through the treetops, pulling leaves from branches with peg-like teeth, teeth that were ideal for raking foliage but not for chewing. Food was swallowed mostly whole, relying on its vast digestive system to break it down over time. Interestingly, the neck may also have allowed Mamenchisaurus to feed more efficiently without having to move its massive body too often. Rather than trudging from tree to tree, it could simply pivot its neck to graze a wide area, conserving energy and avoiding unnecessary journeys across uneven terrain. In a world where sheer size was both a strength and a burden, conserving energy mattered. Not all paleontologists agree that the neck was purely for feeding. Some suggest it might have been important in social behavior. Perhaps males curved their long necks in graceful arcs to impress potential mates or to intimidate rivals. Others propose that the neck may have helped them reach water sources, or even allowed them to browse on plants close to the ground without bending their legs, simply by curving the neck downward. Paleontology constantly reminds us that every feature can serve more than one purpose. The sheer height of Mamenchisaurus also presented challenges. Pumping blood all the way up that long neck to its head would have required an incredibly powerful heart and a specialized system to regulate blood pressure, much like what we see in modern giraffes, but on a far larger scale. We don't know exactly how their circulatory system managed the task, but the fact that these giants thrived for millions of years suggests they solved the problem well enough. Despite their immense size, these sauropods probably moved with a slow, steady rhythm, not unlike elephants today. The ground would have trembled faintly beneath their weight, and their long tails may have swung gently behind them as a counterbalance. Life for Mamenchisaurus was likely unhurried: eat, digest, move on, and repeat. Yet their size didn't make them invincible. Predators like Allosaurus prowled the same landscapes, and a young or injured Mamenchisaurus might have been vulnerable if separated from the herd. Moving in groups may have offered protection. Evidence suggests that many sauropods traveled in herds, and it's easy to picture lines of these long-necked giants crossing a sunlit plain, their heads rising and falling like ships on a calm sea. It must have been both majestic and faintly surreal, a living demonstration of how far evolution could push a simple blueprint. In the vast story of prehistoric life, Mamenchisaurus stands out as a masterpiece of specialization. Its neck wasn't just an appendage, it was its defining statement, a tool that unlocked food sources unreachable to others and perhaps played a role in its social life as well. Even today, when all that's left are fossil bones and careful reconstructions, it's hard not to be awed by the boldness of its design. Some dinosaurs were strange because of horns or armor or feathers. Mamenchisaurus was strange because it took one idea, make the neck longer, and followed it to the ultimate extreme. It's proof that sometimes nature's experiments seem improbable, yet turn out entirely successful. You can almost picture the gentle sway of that impossibly long neck above the tree line, silhouetted against the warm Jurassic sky, as the world bustled on far below. Imagine stepping into the late Cretaceous landscape, where flowering plants have spread across the land and herds of herbivorous dinosaurs graze beneath the warm afternoon sun. Among them, at first glance, you see a dinosaur that doesn't look all that different from other two-legged plant eaters. It stood on powerful hind legs, with short arms tucked close to its body, a stiff tail held out for balance, and a beaked mouth perfect for cropping vegetation. But then your eyes shift upward to the head. There, gleaming in the sunlight, is a rounded dome of solid bone. This was Pachycephalosaurus, one of the oddest dinosaurs ever to roam the earth. That dome was the reason Pachycephalosaurus is so well known. The top of its skull was an incredibly thick roof of bone, sometimes up to 10 inches thick, arching smoothly over the brain like a helmet. Around the edges, small bony knobs and short spikes added extra ornamentation, giving the animal's head a somewhat medieval look. In life, Pachycephalosaurus grew to about 15 feet long from nose to tail, making it the largest member of its peculiar dome-headed family, the Pachycephalosaurids. For decades, paleontologists have debated what that strange bony dome was actually for. The most popular idea, and the one that captures people's imaginations, is that Pachycephalosaurus used its head as a battering ram. The image is hard to resist, two individuals squaring off, charging forward and smashing dome against dome in thunderous clashes over territory or mates. The idea naturally draws comparisons to modern bighorn sheep, whose echoing headbutts roll across mountain slopes. However, when scientists studied Pachycephalosaurus skulls more closely, things didn't look so simple. While the dome was thick, the shape of the skull and the anatomy of the neck may not have been perfectly suited for repeated, high-impact headbutting. Some researchers suggest instead that the animals may have engaged in flank butting, slamming their domes into the sides of rivals rather than colliding head-on. This would still make for impressive displays of strength, but with less risk of damaging the brain or neck. Others have argued that the dome might have been mainly for display. In this interpretation, the size and curve of the dome acted as a visual signal, a way of saying I'm healthy, I'm strong, and I'm worth noticing. The little knobs and spikes ringing the edge of the dome may have been accentuated in life with bright patches of skin, turning the head into a billboard of status. Fossil evidence provides tantalizing hints. In some skulls, paleontologists have found signs of injuries that later healed, suggesting these animals did sometimes hit each other with those domes. The injuries don't prove exactly how they used them, but they strongly suggest some kind of physical contact was involved. The rest of Pachycephalosaurus was almost as unusual as its head. Its mouth was tipped with a beak that snipped vegetation, while behind it rows of small, leaf-shaped teeth processed food. It probably ate leaves, fruits, and maybe even seeds, plentiful in the lush late Cretaceous environment of what is now North America. Its stiff, muscular tail would have counterbalanced the heavy skull during movement, and perhaps during bouts of head-focused activity. The name Pachycephalosaurus literally translates to thick-headed lizard, which is fittingly direct. But in life, it wasn't just a walking skull. Its body was surprisingly agile, with strong legs that could deliver bursts of speed when threatened. This agility would have been crucial for avoiding predators like Tyrannosaurus rex or the fast, pack-hunting dromaeosaurs that prowled the same habitats. Interestingly, most Pachycephalosaurus fossils are incomplete, and much of what we know comes from skulls or skull fragments. For years, scientists wondered whether the smaller, flat-headed versions found in the fossil record were actually separate species. Later studies of bone microstructure suggested these were juveniles, young individuals whose domes hadn't yet grown or thickened fully. As the dinosaur matured, the dome expanded and hardened, much like how deer antlers grow more elaborate with age. This growth pattern ties neatly into the display hypothesis. Younger Pachycephalosaurus may have had little reason to fight, keeping to the edges of social interactions, while older adults displayed their impressive domes in contests of dominance or courtship. By the time they reached adulthood, the dome had become both a signal and a potential weapon. In the bigger story of dinosaur evolution, Pachycephalosaurus represents one of those almost whimsical experiments. While other herbivores evolved horns, frills, or heavy armor, this lineage opted for a helmet. Whether for combat, courtship, or simply display, the dome was their defining trait, and it still stands as one of the most distinctive adaptations in the dinosaur world. Even today, the exact purpose remains uncertain, and that lingering mystery is part of its charm. Pachycephalosaurus may not have been the largest, nor the fiercest, but it was certainly one of the most memorable, a creature whose head alone continues to spark curiosity more than 70 million years after its kind vanished. Now imagine you encounter another late Cretaceous dinosaur for the first time. At first sight, you might think you had stumbled upon a nightmare. Stretching over 30 feet long, with a long neck, a swollen belly, and arms that carried some of the longest claws ever seen on land, over 3 feet in length each, it looked like a predator out of a horror story. those claws curved like scythes, glinting menacingly in the sunlight. This was the Rhizinosaurus. And yet, despite its terrifying appearance, the Rhizinosaurus wasn't a carnivore. It was a plant eater. That contradiction, looking like a monster but living like a gentle giant, is what makes it so fascinating. Its claws weren't designed for tearing flesh but for pulling down vegetation, stripping branches, and possibly even collecting fruit. The Rhizinosaurus belonged to a bizarre group of theropods called the Rhizinosaurs. They were close relatives of predators like Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus rex, but they had taken a radically different evolutionary path. Where their cousins sharpened their teeth and honed their speed for hunting, the Rhizinosaurs slowed down, grew bulky, and switched to a plant-based diet. The Rhizinosaurus lived around 70 million years ago in what is now Mongolia, in a world of forests, rivers, and floodplains. Its long neck gave it access to foliage that smaller herbivores couldn't reach, while its barrel-shaped body housed a vast digestive system for breaking down tough plants. Like many herbivores, it probably swallowed its food with little chewing, letting fermentation in its gut do the work. Those enormous claws, though mainly feeding tools, were likely multi-purpose. They could have been swung in defense, slashing at predators that ventured too close. Even without the sharpness of a carnivore's talons, a 3-foot claw swipe would have been devastating. Some scientists think they might also have been used for hauling themselves upright against tree trunks, or for dragging down especially stubborn branches. The image of a 30-foot dinosaur gently plucking leaves with sword-sized claws is equal parts absurd and awe-inspiring. Its head was small compared to its body, ending in a toothless beak ideal for cropping plants. Behind the beak, only a few small teeth remained, hardly the arsenal of a predator. Combined with its long neck and heavy body, its appearance was unlike any other dinosaur, a strange mix of predator-like features repurposed for a vegetarian lifestyle. Adding to the oddity, the Rhizinosaurus was feathered. Fossils of its relatives reveal that these dinosaurs carried a coat of simple, hair-like feathers over their bodies. They weren't for flight, but they could have provided insulation, helped in display, or even been useful in protecting nests. The thought of a giant dinosaur with feathers, claws like swords, and a pot-bellied frame makes the Rhizinosaurus one of the strangest silhouettes of the entire dinosaur age. When the first remains of the Rhizinosaurus were found in the mid-20th century, they caused confusion. Only the claws were discovered at first, and paleontologists thought they must have belonged to a giant turtle-like creature. It was only later, when more skeletons were uncovered, that the true nature of this dinosaur was revealed. Even today, complete skeletons remain rare, and much of what we know comes from piecing together its bones with those of its smaller relatives. Unlike the restless predators of its time, the Rhizinosaurus likely lived a slow, deliberate lifestyle. It could feed in one place for long stretches before wandering off to the next grove. Its great arms gave it reach in multiple directions, letting it gather food without shifting its whole bulk. This efficiency may have been a key survival advantage. As for social life, it remains largely a mystery. Some reconstructions imagine them in loose groups, perhaps females gathering to nest, while males used their claws and feathers in elaborate mating displays. The claws could have acted as impressive visual signals as well as tools, much like the peacock's tail, except more dangerous looking. If that was the case, what seems like a fearsome weapon to us might have been a romantic flourish to another, the Rhizinosaurus. Of course, predators were still a threat. Massive carnivores like Tarbosaurus roamed the same land. But the Rhizinosaurus wasn't defenseless. Its size alone would have deterred many hunters, and those claws would have been enough to make even a determined predator hesitate. Sometimes appearance really was everything. The Rhizinosaurus shows us that evolution doesn't always follow a straight line. From a lineage of sharp-toothed hunters came a creature that gave up the chase for a life of leaf-pulling, all while keeping some of the most intimidating equipment in the dinosaur world. It was a herbivore dressed in a predator's frame, a gentle forager with the arms of a monster. In life, it must have been a remarkable sight. Long claws curling as they reached for branches, feathers glinting in the sun, belly swaying with each heavy step. The more we uncover, the more it feels like one of nature's great experiments. A reminder that the most extraordinary designs often come from blending the unexpected. Picture the warm, lush plains of the late Cretaceous. Herds of duck-billed dinosaurs move slowly through fields of ferns and flowering plants, their long tails sweeping the ground as they graze. But among them, one stands out, not because of its size, but because of the striking crest rising from the back of its head. It curves upward and backward like an elegant ornament. This was Parasaurolophus, one of the most distinctive hadrosaurs ever discovered, its headgear fascinating scientists for nearly a century. Parasaurolophus belonged to the hadrosaur family, the famous duck-billed dinosaurs. They were named for their broad, flattened snouts and were among the most successful herbivores of the Cretaceous, living in huge herds across North America and Asia. Most of them had modest crests or none at all. But Parasaurolophus carried an elaborate structure that could stretch more than 6 feet long, making it one of the most spectacular cranial ornaments in the dinosaur world. What's most remarkable about this crest isn't just its size or graceful curve, it's what was inside. CT scans of fossil skulls have revealed a network of hollow tubes winding through the crest, all connected to the dinosaur's nasal passages. This unusual anatomy inspired one of the most compelling ideas in paleontology, that the crest acted like a built-in musical instrument. By pushing air from its lungs through the tubes, Parasaurolophus may have produced deep, resonant sounds that carried over long distances. Even more fascinating, each dinosaur's crest was shaped slightly differently, which means their calls may have varied in pitch and tone. Much like musical instruments, no two sound exactly alike. These haunting notes could have been used to communicate with the herd, warn of danger, or attract mates. Some scientists imagine their calls as low, eerie tones that echoed across prehistoric wetlands like the mournful sound of a foghorn. The crest may also have been a visual display. In life, it might have been covered with brightly colored skin, making the head stand out dramatically during courtship or social displays. Combined with its unique voice, Parasaurolophus could signal both visually and audibly at once, an especially effective strategy in the dense, noisy habitats it lived in. As Parasaurolophus grew, so did its crest. Young dinosaurs had only small bumps, which elongated as they matured. This suggests the crest's main role came into play in adulthood, probably tied to mate selection or establishing social rank. A fully grown adult, towering over 30 feet long and equipped with a large symmetrical crest, must have been an impressive sight to rivals and potential partners alike. Its lifestyle was typical of hadrosaurs, both a grazer and a browser. Parasaurolophus could walk on all fours while feeding but rear up on its strong hind legs to reach higher branches. Its jaws contained tightly packed dental batteries, hundreds of tiny teeth arranged for grinding tough plant material efficiently. This ability to process a wide variety of vegetation made it one of the most adaptable herbivores of its time. Herd living was central to its survival. Moving in groups offered protection against predators like tyrannosaurs, which were constant threats. In this context, the ability to communicate at long distances with booming calls may have been crucial, keeping the herd connected even when spread out across wide floodplains or dense forests. Different species of Parasaurolophus had crests with slightly varied shapes, some longer and more curved, others shorter and straighter. This diversity suggests that the crest was under strong evolutionary pressure, likely driven by social or sexual selection. Each species may have developed its own distinctive voice and visual style, much like different birds today have unique calls and plumage. While the musical instrument theory is the most famous, it isn't the only idea. Some researchers think the crest may have helped regulate body temperature by providing extra surface area for blood vessels to release heat. Others believe it may have enhanced their sense of smell by increasing the nasal passage area. As with many features in evolution, it's possible the crest served multiple purposes at once. The first fossils of Parasaurolophus were described in the 1920s, and from the beginning the crest drew attention. Early reconstructions even mistakenly showed it pointing forward, like a strange unicorn horn, until later discoveries clarified its true backward sweep. Since then, it has become one of the most iconic dinosaurs in popular culture, instantly recognizable by silhouette alone. Parasaurolophus challenges the outdated idea that dinosaurs were purely practical creatures designed only for survival. Its crest, while it may have had some functional uses, was also likely shaped by communication and display, the same social forces that drive the extravagant features of many birds and mammals today. Considering that hadrosaurs were part of the evolutionary branch that eventually gave rise to birds, it fits neatly into the bigger story of life. It's easy to imagine a herd of Parasaurolophus on a misty morning. Their heads rise above the ferns, crests silhouetted against the rising sun. One lets out a long, low note that echoes across the valley. Another answers in a slightly different pitch, then another, until the air fills with a resonant chorus. For us, it's only reconstruction, but for them, it was real, a living soundscape, a kind of prehistoric music carried not by crafted instruments, but by their own bones. Parasaurolophus reminds us that the age of dinosaurs was anything but silent. It was a world filled with voices, signals, and perhaps even melodies woven into the daily life of these great herds. Now move to another strange herbivore of the same age, Ankylosaurus. Unlike the elegant Parasaurolophus, Ankylosaurus didn't rely on sound or show. Instead, it was built like a fortress. Living at the end of the Cretaceous in North America, it was one of the most heavily armored animals to ever exist. Ankylosaurus grew more than 20 feet long and weighed up to 8 tons. Its body was wide and low to the ground, covered in thick bony plates called osteoderms. These plates were embedded in the skin like armor and arranged in neat rows across its back, neck, and tail. Some were topped with spikes or knobs, making them even more formidable. The skull was protected as well, with a solid helmet of bone, small horns at the back, and even bony eyelid plates. It gave Ankylosaurus a look of grim determination, as if ready to withstand anything. But its most famous feature was at the end of its tail, a massive bony club. Formed from fused vertebrae and covered in dense bone, the club could be swung with devastating force. Muscles in the tail turned it into a natural sledgehammer, capable of breaking the legs of even the largest predators. Evidence shows that some tyrannosaurs carried healed fractures that might have been caused by a blow from an ankylosaur's tail. This fearsome defense allowed Ankylosaurus to live at a slower pace. It likely spent much of its time grazing on low vegetation, sweeping its beak-shaped mouth across ferns, cycads, and shrubs. Its small, leaf-shaped teeth weren't made for chewing thoroughly. Instead, digestion relied on fermentation within its enormous gut, breaking down tough plant fibers over time. Predators like Tyrannosaurus rex may have been capable of killing an Ankylosaurus, but even they faced serious risks. A single swing of that club could cripple an attacker, making the reward hardly worth the danger. Most carnivores likely looked for easier prey. Despite its armor, Ankylosaurus wasn't invulnerable. A vulnerable belly, or juveniles whose armor wasn't fully developed, would have been at risk. Living in groups may have helped, with multiple individuals forming a wall of defense. And while the plates served as protection, they may also have been used for display, perhaps covered in keratin and even colored to help individuals recognize each other. The tail club probably wasn't used constantly. It took energy to swing, and often the sight of it was enough to deter attack. Like modern animals with dramatic defenses, think porcupines or musk oxen, the point was to avoid conflict when possible. Its sensory abilities added to its effectiveness. Wide-set eyes gave it a broad field of vision. Its nostrils and nasal passages were unusually complex, possibly enhancing its sense of smell or helping regulate temperature. Some scientists even speculate the passages could have produced low sounds, though this idea remains uncertain. In life, Ankylosaurus would have moved slowly but steadily, tail swinging gently behind, armored back glinting in the sun. Predators watching from a distance would have weighed their chances carefully before deciding that maybe something smaller and easier would be a wiser meal. Ankylosaurus fossils are relatively rare, which adds to its mystique. Much of what we know comes from related species, pieced together with the few well-preserved skeletons available. Its scarcity may be due to its sheer heaviness. Bodies this massive were less likely to be moved and buried after death, reducing their chances of fossilization. What makes Ankylosaurus so compelling is how thoroughly it embodied defense as a survival strategy. It didn't rely on speed, stealth, or aggression. It relied on making itself nearly untouchable. In a world filled with claws and teeth, it thrived by simply being too much trouble. Ankylosaurus was proof that survival could come not from attacking, but from enduring. Imagine the quiet late Cretaceous plains. Ankylosaurus grazes calmly, its armored back catching the sunlight. A predator lingers at the edge of the clearing, calculating. The ankylosaur raises its tail slowly, the heavy club swaying. The predator pauses, then turns away. A fight avoided, the balance of power settled without bloodshed. That was Ankylosaurus' gift, a creature that didn't seek battle but was always ready for one. Not all dinosaurs wore their strangeness on the outside. Some revealed their oddities in subtler ways, through anatomy and behavior that at first glance seemed ordinary, but upon closer inspection proved extraordinary. One such dinosaur was Oviraptor. Its very name means egg thief, a label given unfairly when the first fossil was discovered in the 1920s, crouched near a nest of eggs. Paleontologists assumed it had been caught in the act of stealing another dinosaur's offspring. Decades later, evidence revealed a much different truth. That egg thief was actually protecting its own nest. Oviraptor was a small to medium-sized theropod, roughly the size of a large turkey, with a toothless beak, slender arms tipped with claws, and often a small bony crest on its head. It lived during the late Cretaceous in what is now Mongolia, sharing its world with giants like Tarbosaurus. But unlike its massive neighbors, Oviraptor thrived not through size or brute strength, but through clever adaptations and surprising behaviors. The real revelation about Oviraptor came when more fossils were unearthed showing adults preserved directly on top of nests, wings spread wide as though sheltering eggs. Just like modern birds, they brooded. Their long, feathered arms acted as protective canopies, keeping eggs warm and shielded. For the first time, scientists realized some dinosaurs didn't just lay eggs and leave them. They cared for them, guarded them, and perhaps even rotated them carefully. The eggs themselves were elongated rather than round, arranged in neat circles within the nests. This deliberate pattern suggests a careful approach to parenting. It wasn't a chaotic scattering of eggs, it was structured, intentional. That level of care gave paleontologists a deeper glimpse into the evolutionary link between dinosaurs and birds. Oviraptor's diet remains something of a puzzle. With no teeth and a sharp, parrot-like beak, it may have eaten a wide variety of foods, fruits, seeds, mollusks, or small animals. Some researchers propose it may have specialized in cracking open hard-shelled prey like clams or nuts, its beak acting like powerful pliers. Others suggest a more omnivorous lifestyle, snapping up whatever it could find. The versatility itself may have been the secret to its success. Its crest, though small compared to Parasaurolophus, may have played a role in communication or display. In life, it could have been bright with color, perhaps signaling age or gender. Combined with feathers, which we now know covered its body, Oviraptor may have been a surprisingly vibrant dinosaur, more bird-like than reptilian in appearance. What makes Oviraptor particularly strange isn't that it looked odd, but that it behaved in ways once thought impossible for dinosaurs. For a long time, dinosaurs were painted as cold, unfeeling reptiles that simply laid eggs and walked away. Oviraptor changed that narrative. It showed us that at least some dinosaurs nurtured their young, a behavior we associate with intelligence and complexity. Imagine a late Cretaceous dawn on the open sands of Mongolia. An oviraptor crouches over its nest, feathers spread like a blanket, beak clacking softly as it adjusts its eggs. Around it, the air stirs with the calls of other dinosaurs, but the parent remains steady, vigilant, and protective. This was not an egg thief. It was a guardian. From the small and delicate, we turn to something enormous and spectacular, Spinosaurus. Few dinosaurs ignite the imagination quite like this one, and few are as mysterious. Spinosaurus was among the largest theropods ever, rivaling or even exceeding Tyrannosaurus rex in length. But what truly set it apart was the towering sail on its back, formed from elongated vertebral spines that could rise over 6 feet tall. Spinosaurus lived during the Cretaceous in what is now North Africa, around 95 million years ago. Its world was different from the forests of North America or the plains of Mongolia. It lived in a river-rich environment filled with crocodile-like predators, massive fish, and dense wetlands. Everything about Spinosaurus seems adapted to this watery realm. Its skull stretched long and narrow, resembling that of a crocodile more than a typical theropod. Conical teeth lined its jaws, perfect for gripping slippery prey rather than slicing flesh. Fossil evidence suggests it feasted primarily on giant fish, though it may not have turned down smaller dinosaurs or carrion when available. But the real debates surround its sail and its lifestyle. For decades, scientists puzzled over the function of the enormous structure on its back. Some argued it acted like a billboard for display, perhaps to attract mates or intimidate rivals. Others proposed it helped regulate body temperature, the broad surface area absorbing or releasing heat like a giant radiator. Recent evidence has added a new twist. Studies of Spinosaurus bones reveal they were unusually dense for a theropod, more like those of aquatic animals. Its limbs were short, and its tail had tall spines arranged in a way that suggests it could undulate side to side, much like the tail of a crocodile. Taken together, these features suggest Spinosaurus wasn't just a fisher along the shore. It was a semi-aquatic predator that swam through rivers and lakes. This revelation reshaped our image of Spinosaurus. Instead of towering over the land like a traditional predator, it may have prowled the shallows, slipping silently through the water to ambush fish. Its sail, rising above the surface, might even have broken the water like a strange prehistoric fin. What role the sail played in this aquatic lifestyle remains debated. Some suggest it acted like a stabilizer in the water, while others maintain its primary function was still visual display. Regardless, it gave Spinosaurus one of the most unforgettable profiles of any dinosaur. Its immense size, up to 50 feet long, combined with its crocodilian skull and enormous sail, made it look like something from another world. In a way, it was. While most theropods pursued land-based prey, Spinosaurus ventured into an entirely different niche. It was one of the first dinosaurs to truly take to the water, blurring the line between land hunter and aquatic predator. Picture a wide prehistoric river. The water ripples as something massive moves beneath the surface. A shadow glides, tail sweeping side to side, jaws poised. Suddenly, with a burst of speed, Spinosaurus surges upward, teeth closing on a giant fish in an explosion of spray. Above the water, its sail glistens in the sunlight, a towering banner of bone and skin. This was no ordinary dinosaur. This was Spinosaurus, the river monster of the Cretaceous. Its discovery has been equally dramatic. The first fossils were uncovered in Egypt in the early 20th century, but were destroyed during World War II bombings. For decades, Spinosaurus was known only from drawings and descriptions. New finds in Morocco later revealed its true proportions and aquatic features, overturning earlier assumptions. Even now, paleontologists continue to debate its exact appearance, with each new fossil reshaping the picture. This uncertainty only adds to its allure. Spinosaurus is a reminder that even the most famous dinosaurs are still, in many ways, mysteries waiting to be solved. Every fossil is a clue, every discovery a new piece in the puzzle of prehistory. And sometimes, the truth is stranger than any fiction we could imagine. So far we've seen dinosaurs with impossibly long necks, battering ram skulls, enormous claws, musical crests, and armored tails. We've seen small guardians of nests and river-dwelling giants with sails on their backs. What unites them all is the way evolution experimented, producing forms that often seem bizarre but always had purpose. Each adaptation was a solution to survival in a world filled with challenges. As we continue deeper into this ancient world, the surprises only grow stranger. For every dinosaur that fit the familiar mold, there were others that broke the rules. Creatures so unusual they force us to rethink what it means to be a dinosaur at all. In the shifting landscapes of the late Cretaceous, dinosaurs didn't just dominate the ground. Some took to the skies in forms so unusual they still challenge our imagination. One of the strangest was Microraptor, a small predator whose very body seemed caught between two worlds. At about the size of a crow, it might not sound impressive compared to giants like Spinosaurus or Ankylosaurus. But Microraptor carried a feature no other dinosaur displayed so clearly: wings not only on its arms but also on its legs. When its fossils were first unearthed in China, paleontologists were stunned. Microraptor's body was covered in feathers, and both its arms and legs bore long, flight feathers arranged like wings. It had 4 functional wings, creating a silhouette unlike anything alive today. This discovery reshaped how we understood the origins of flight. Microraptor didn't flap like a modern bird. Instead, evidence suggests it glided from tree to tree, spreading all 4 limbs to catch the air like a living kite. Its long feathers on the hind legs acted as stabilizers, letting it swoop gracefully through forests in pursuit of prey. In life, it may have had an iridescent sheen, feathers shimmering in the dappled sunlight of ancient woodlands. Its teeth and claws show it was a predator. Microraptor likely hunted small animals, lizards, mammals, and even fish. Some fossilized stomach contents have preserved the remains of prey, proving it was versatile in its diet. Agile, lightweight, and airborne, it had access to food sources that larger, land-bound predators could never reach. What makes Microraptor especially fascinating is what it reveals about the evolution of flight. For years, scientists debated whether birds first evolved flight by running and launching into the air, or by climbing trees and gliding down. Microraptor supports the second idea. With wings on all 4 limbs, it was clearly built for gliding through a forest environment, bridging the gap between tree-dwelling dinosaurs and true flyers. Imagine standing in a Cretaceous forest, the canopy alive with calls and movement. Suddenly, a shadow darts from above, a small dinosaur spreading 4 wings as it glides silently past. For a moment, it feels like watching a dragonfly scaled up into something feathered and fierce. Microraptor was one of nature's experiments, a glimpse of how flight might have evolved through strange and transitional forms. If Microraptor showed how dinosaurs reached the skies, the Rhizinosaurus showed how bizarre they could become on the ground. Few creatures look as improbable as this one. First discovered in the mid-20th century, the Rhizinosaurus was initially a puzzle. Its claws alone, some over 3 feet long, were the first parts unearthed. At first, scientists thought they belonged to a giant turtle. Later, they realized they were from a dinosaur, but what kind? The full picture that emerged was astonishing. The Rhizinosaurus stood nearly 30 feet long, with a pot-bellied body, long neck, small head, and feathers covering much of its body. But the most striking features were its arms, long, powerful, tipped with those absurdly elongated claws. They were the longest claws of any known animal, living or extinct. At first glance, you might think such claws were perfect weapons, built for slashing prey. But everything else about the Rhizinosaurus pointed in another direction. Its small, leaf-shaped teeth and long neck suggest it was a herbivore, feeding mostly on plants. So what were the claws for? The best explanation is that they were tools, used for pulling down branches, raking foliage, or stripping leaves. They may also have been used for defense, swiping at predators if threatened. Its bulky body and wide hips indicate it was slow-moving, unlike the sleek predators it descended from. That's part of what makes the Rhizinosaurus so strange. It belonged to the theropods, the same group as Tyrannosaurus and Velociraptor, yet it abandoned carnivory for a plant-based diet. From fierce hunters, its lineage evolved into bizarre, clawed, pot-bellied herbivores. In life, the Rhizinosaurus would have looked almost surreal. Feathers covered its body, though likely not for flight. Instead, they may have been for display or insulation. Some artists imagine it with colorful plumage, like a giant bird dressed in extravagant feathers, claws arcing down like scythes. To see one in person would have been like stepping into a dream, its body a mix of predator ancestry and herbivore lifestyle. Its claws also raise fascinating possibilities for social behavior. Perhaps males displayed them in mating rituals, flashing their enormous size as symbols of strength. Perhaps they clashed with one another in slow, sweeping battles, claws striking against claws in a display more intimidating than lethal. Whatever their purpose, they made the Rhizinosaurus one of the most distinctive dinosaurs of all time. Picture a Cretaceous plain with low shrubs and scattered trees. The Rhizinosaurus stands upright, reaching high with its neck to pull leaves from branches. With slow, deliberate movements, it raises its long arms, claws curling around stems to drag them closer. Behind it, the sun casts long shadows of scythe-shaped silhouettes across the ground. This was no predator. It was a peaceful giant armed with the strangest tools imaginable. What unites Microraptor and the Rhizinosaurus is not size or lifestyle, but strangeness of form. One blurred the line between bird and dinosaur, gliding on four wings through forest skies. The other blurred the line between predator and herbivore, wielding enormous claws not to kill, but to eat plants. Both are reminders that evolution doesn't always move in straight lines. It branches, experiments, and sometimes creates creatures that seem more like fantasies than reality. The diversity of dinosaurs is easy to underestimate when we focus only on the famous few. But in truth, they filled nearly every role imaginable, from insect hunters the size of chickens to semi-aquatic giants bigger than buses, from armored tanks to musical-voiced herders. Each adaptation tells us that in the Mesozoic world, survival didn't belong only to the strongest. It belonged to the strangest, too. As night falls in our imagined Cretaceous forest, the silhouettes of Microraptor drift from branch to branch, gliding quietly through the dark. Far away on the plains, the Rhizinosaurus rests among the ferns, claws curled under like sleeping scythes. Both strange, both successful, both reminders that the age of dinosaurs was an age of endless possibility. Among the most peculiar dinosaurs ever uncovered, there is one that looks as though it came straight from a dream, or perhaps a child's imagination. This was Centausaurus, a hadrosaur that lived in Asia during the late Cretaceous. At first glance, it resembled many of its duck-billed relatives, with a long body, powerful hind legs, and a snout suited for grazing on plants. But the detail that captured everyone's attention was the strange crest rising from its head. When the first fossil was unearthed in the 1950s, paleontologists reconstructed the skull with a long, thin spike pointing straight up like a unicorn's horn. For decades, Centausaurus was nicknamed the unicorn dinosaur, its crest giving it a silhouette unlike any other creature. Some dismissed the feature as a mistake in reconstruction, while others thought it might have been a broken fossil. But later finds confirmed the crest was indeed real. though not quite the fantastical spike it was once imagined to be. The true crest was a hollow structure that rose from the snout and curved backward, forming a tube-like extension of the nasal passages. Much like Parasaurolophus, Centausaurus may have used this hollow crest to produce sounds. By forcing air through it, the dinosaur could have created deep, resonant calls to communicate with others of its kind. This possibility transforms how we picture these animals. Instead of silent herds grazing on ancient plains, imagine a chorus of deep, eerie notes drifting through the air as groups of Centausaurus called back and forth across the landscape. Sound became a part of their presence, just as much as their bodies. Beyond sound, the crest may have been a form of display. Brightly colored skin stretched over the structure could have turned it into a visual signal, a way to impress mates or intimidate rivals. Combined with its duck bill and sheer size, over 30 feet long, Centausaurus would have been impossible to miss. Like other hadrosaurs, it had hundreds of small teeth packed into dental batteries, perfectly adapted for grinding tough plant material. This efficiency let them feed on a wide variety of vegetation, from ferns to flowering plants. Living in herds, they were some of the most successful plant eaters of their time. And with their crests, they added not just function but spectacle to survival. Picture a herd of Centausaurus on an open plain. Their crests rise like banners as they move, calls echoing across the landscape. The air vibrates with deep tones, each dinosaur adding its voice to the chorus. This was not a unicorn of myth, but a living, breathing animal, stranger and more fascinating than legend. From a supposed unicorn, we move to a true enigma, theropods known as Troodon. While not bizarre in appearance like some dinosaurs, Troodon earned its place among the strangest because of its brain. In proportion to its body, Troodon had one of the largest brains of any dinosaur. That, combined with keen eyesight and grasping hands, has made it a symbol of dinosaur intelligence. Troodon was small, about 6 to 8 feet long, lightweight and built for agility. It had long legs for speed, sharp teeth for an omnivorous diet, and large forward-facing eyes that gave it excellent depth perception. Its sickle-shaped claw on each foot, smaller than that of Velociraptor but still effective, suggests it could hunt with precision. But the most remarkable feature remained inside its skull. Its brain was large relative to its size, rivaling or even exceeding some modern birds. This has led to speculation that Troodon may have been capable of complex behaviors, perhaps problem-solving, coordinated hunting, or advanced parenting. Fossils show that Troodon laid eggs in spiral-shaped nests and may have cared for them. The idea of a dinosaur with intelligence approaching that of modern crows or parrots is astonishing. Of course, intelligence is difficult to measure in fossils. Brain size doesn't always equal behavior, but the potential has fascinated scientists and storytellers alike. Some have even speculated, half seriously, half in fun, that if dinosaurs had not gone extinct, Troodon or its relatives might have continued evolving into even more intelligent forms. Imagine encountering Troodon at night, its large eyes glinting in the moonlight, feathers shimmering faintly as it moves with quiet purpose. Unlike the lumbering giants around it, Troodon was quick, sharp, and perhaps cunning. In a world ruled by strength and size, it thrived through agility and brains. From a hadrosaur that sang through its crest to a predator with a brain far larger than expected, these dinosaurs remind us that strangeness isn't only about appearance. Sometimes it lies in sound, in behavior, in the hidden potential of the mind. Another dinosaur that captured attention for its unusual features was Amargasaurus, a sauropod from South America during the early Cretaceous. At first glance, it resembled other members of its family: long neck, long tail, 4 pillar-like legs, and a plant-based diet. But rising from its neck and back were pairs of elongated spines, some over 2 feet tall. These spines may have supported a sail of skin, much like the sail of Spinosaurus, or they may have stood free like a double row of spikes. If covered in skin, The sail could have helped regulate body temperature or been used for display. If exposed, the spines may have served as a warning to predators, giving Amargasaurus a fearsome silhouette. Imagine a giant sauropod not just towering in size, but bristling with spikes down its neck, like a prehistoric dragon. In herds, they would have presented an intimidating sight. Predators might have thought twice before attacking creatures armed not with teeth or claws, but with a forest of spines. Their lifestyle remained similar to other sauropods, slow-moving, grazing on vegetation, using their long necks to reach food other animals could not. But the addition of spines turned them from gentle giants into some of the most visually striking dinosaurs of their era. What unites Centausaurus, Troodon, and Amargasaurus is the reminder that dinosaurs were not a uniform group of creatures. They were endlessly diverse, experimenting with form and function in ways that often seem unreal to us now. Some called across the plains with musical crests, others sharpened their minds for survival, and still others armed themselves with strange spines that made them look like creatures from fantasy. Each new fossil adds another layer to this story. Each discovery reshapes how we picture their world. And with every strange feature, from horns to sails to brains, we are reminded that the age of dinosaurs was filled not only with giants, but with marvels. Not all dinosaurs dazzled with their size or crests. Some stood out because of their armor, strange, heavy suits of bone and horn that turned them into living fortresses. Among these, one of the oddest was Gastonia. Discovered in North America and dating to the early Cretaceous, Gastonia was an ankylosaur, part of the family of heavily armored plantaetors. But unlike some of its relatives, Gastonia had an especially elaborate arrangement of spikes and plates that made it look more like a walking weapon than an animal. Gastonia was relatively small compared to giants like Ankylosaurus, reaching about 15 feet in length. Its back was covered in bony plates, and along its sides were sharp spikes pointing outward, giving it protection against predators from nearly every angle. If a carnivorous dinosaur tried to bite, it risked a mouthful of armor or being impaled. The effect was like a tank bristling with blades. One of the most fascinating features of Gastonia was its sheer abundance of armor. Fossil evidence suggests it had more osteoderms, those bony plates, than most other ankylosaurs. Some were flat and shield-like, others were spiky, forming a layered defense system. Even its tail bore protective structures, though it lacked the heavy club seen in later relatives. Instead, its defense lay in its thicket of spikes. Imagine a predator approaching Gastonia, circling for an opening. From every side, spikes jutted outward, turning the dinosaur into a puzzle no attacker wanted to solve. Even if the predator managed to bite, it risked snapping teeth or wounding itself in the process. Survival for Gastonia meant not outrunning danger, but making itself too costly to attack. Its body shape suggests it was low to the ground, feeding on ferns and low plants. Slow-moving and built like a shield, it relied on its armor for safety. In herds, they would have been even more formidable, rows of spiked backs forming an impenetrable wall. The discovery of Gastonia also revealed something about the arms race of the early Cretaceous. As predators evolved sharper teeth and stronger jaws, herbivores like Gastonia responded with heavier armor and stranger defenses. Each adaptation drove the other, shaping an ancient battle of survival that played out over millions of years. From the armor of Gastonia, we move to the delicate strangeness of Bapiasaurus, a therizinosaur that lived in China during the early Cretaceous. The therizinosaurs, as we've seen, were already unusual, descendants of carnivorous theropods that evolved into pot-bellied, feathered plantaetors. Bapiasaurus stood out for several reasons, not least because it preserved evidence of feathers in exquisite detail. At about 7 feet long, it was smaller than the giant Therizinosaurus, but it carried the same strange proportions. Long neck, small head, bulky body, and arms tipped with large claws. Fossils show it had two types of feathers, short, fluffy ones for insulation and longer, stiff ones that may have been used for display. These stiff feathers, arranged in rows along its body, gave it a distinctive look unlike other the rhizinosaurs. Its claws, while not as gigantic as those of the rhizinosaurus, were still impressive. They may have been used for pulling down branches or for defense. Combined with its feathers, Bapiaeosaurus was a striking blend of bird-like and reptilian traits. It lived in a forested environment where plants were abundant, feeding on leaves and possibly small animals. What makes Bapiaeosaurus particularly fascinating is how it adds to the story of feather evolution. Feathers were not just for flight. In Bapiaeosaurus, they served multiple roles: insulation, display, and perhaps even sensory functions. The stiff feathers may have flashed with color, helping attract mates or warn rivals. This suggests that the explosion of feather types among dinosaurs was as much about communication as it was about survival. Picture Bapiaeosaurus moving through a Cretaceous forest, its strange feathers catching the sunlight in glimmers, claws curling as it rakes leaves from branches. Nearby, predators lurk, but the rhizinosaur's claws are ready, and its feathers make it appear larger and more imposing. Survival for Bapiaeosaurus meant not just eating plants, but being seen in a certain way, an animal defined by both function and spectacle. While Bapiaeosaurus showed the strangeness of feathers, another dinosaur, Narthornychus, added to the oddity of the rhizinosaurs. Found in North America, Narthornychus was the first rhizinosaur discovered outside Asia, proving that this bizarre group had spread far and wide. Like its relatives, it had long arms with claws, a wide belly, and features suggesting a plant-based diet. Its very existence forced paleontologists to rethink dinosaur distribution and how groups migrated across ancient continents. Together, Bapiaeosaurus and Narthornychus illustrate the global reach of these strange, pot-bellied, clawed dinosaurs. They remind us that the weird wasn't confined to one place. It was a global phenomenon, repeating and adapting in different corners of the prehistoric world. From armor-plated tanks like Gastonia to feathered oddities like Bapiaeosaurus, dinosaurs reveal how evolution shaped survival in unexpected ways. One relied on spikes and armor, the other on feathers and claws. Both thrived in their own time, both strange in form yet perfectly adapted to their worlds. As we continue, we see again and again that the strangest dinosaurs were not accidents or oddities. They were experiments that worked, filling roles in ecosystems that demanded innovation. Armor, feathers, claws, crests, each was a solution, a path carved through the challenges of ancient life. Imagine an early Cretaceous landscape. A herd of Gastonia shuffles together, spikes glittering in the sun like a wall of blades. Across the forest, Bapiaeosaurus moves silently, strange feathers swaying with each step. Two very different animals, two very different strategies, yet both living proof that survival often favors the unusual. If armor and feathers weren't strange enough, some dinosaurs seem to combine features from entirely different animals. Take the curious case of the Rhizinosaurus's smaller relatives like Falcarius. Discovered in North America, Falcarius was an early member of the Rhizinosaur family, and it helps reveal how predators slowly transformed into plant eaters. At around 13 feet long, Falcarius still carried many traits of its meat-eating ancestors. It had sharp, serrated teeth at the front of its mouth, built for slicing flesh. But behind those were flatter teeth more suited for grinding plants. Its body, too, reflected this transition. While it still had a relatively lean build compared to later rhizinosaurs, its hips were widening, its gut enlarging to hold plant material. Its claws, though not as exaggerated as later cousins, were already long and curved, hinting at their eventual transformation into the enormous scythes of the Rhizinosaurus. In a sense, Falcarius represents a snapshot of evolution in progress. It shows how one group of predators began experimenting with new diets and new lifestyles, branching away from carnivory into herbivory. Evolution rarely happens in neat steps, but Falcarius captures that messy middle stage, part hunter, part forager. Imagine watching it in life. In a scrubby early Cretaceous forest, Falcarius darts between patches of plants, nibbling on leaves but also seizing a small lizard when the chance arises. Its claws flash as it pulls down stems, its mixed teeth grinding both meat and greenery. Neither fully one thing nor the other, it thrived in a shifting ecosystem by refusing to specialize too narrowly. While Falcarius highlights the transitional nature of evolution, another dinosaur, Concavinator, stunned paleontologists with features no one expected. Found in Spain, Concavinator was a medium-sized predator, about 20 feet long, belonging to the Carcharodontosaurs, a group of large theropods. At first glance, it seemed fairly standard: sharp teeth, strong legs, and a powerful tail. But then scientists noticed two peculiar traits. The first was a pair of tall vertebrae near the hips, forming a short but distinct hump on its back. The purpose of this hump remains debated. It may have supported a sail of skin, used for thermoregulation or display. Or it may have been a fat storage structure, similar to the hump of a camel. Whatever the function, it gave Concavinator an unusual silhouette, a predator with a strange rise on its back. The second surprise came in the form of tiny bumps on its forearm bones. These bumps resembled quill knobs, the places where feathers attach in modern birds. If correct, this suggests Concavinator may have had primitive feathers on its arms. The idea of a large predator with feathers, even in small patches, added another layer of complexity to our picture of dinosaur evolution. Imagine this predator prowling through Cretaceous woodlands, its strange hump rising behind it, arms perhaps bristling with quills. When it roared, smaller animals scattered, knowing they faced not just strength but strangeness incarnate. Concavinator was both familiar and alien, a hunter shaped by the same evolutionary experiments that produced armored herbivores and feathered omnivores. From transitional omnivores to humped predators, we move next to one of the strangest small dinosaurs ever discovered, Pegamastax. Barely 2 feet long, this tiny creature lived in southern Africa about 200 million years ago, during the early Jurassic. Its size might make it seem insignificant, but Pegamastax carried a bizarre combination of traits that earned it the nickname the vampire parrot dinosaur. Its jaws held sharp, fang-like teeth at the front, giving it a somewhat fearsome appearance. But further back were flat teeth suited for grinding plants. This suggests it was herbivorous, despite its vampire-like fangs. Its skull was short and parrot-like, with a beak that could shear through tough vegetation. Fossil evidence suggests it may also have had quills or bristles along its body, giving it a bristly, hedgehog-like appearance. To imagine Pegamastax in life is to picture something almost cartoonish. A small, feather-bristled dinosaur with a parrot's beak and vampire teeth scurrying through undergrowth, nibbling plants, and perhaps digging at roots. Its appearance was odd, but it filled an ecological niche, small, fast, and specialized for tough vegetation. The diversity of form among dinosaurs like Falcarius, Concavinator, and Pegamastax shows how evolution experimented across scales. Some became transitional generalists, others sprouted unexpected humps, and still others shrank down into strange, bristle-covered plant eaters. Each adapted to its environment in ways that might seem improbable, but they all worked in the grand theater of prehistoric life. Picture an ancient valley where all three might be imagined together. Concavinator prowls the forest edge, hump looming above its back. In the thickets below, Pegamastax darts like a feathered rodent, bristly body flashing as it nibbles plants. And not far away, Falcarius straddles both worlds, feeding on shrubs but snapping up prey when the opportunity arises. Each embodies strangeness in its own way, yet each survives because of it. From such oddities, we're reminded that dinosaurs weren't a single story of giant predators and massive herbivores. They were a collection of countless stories, each shaped by adaptation and survival. Some pushed their claws to impossible lengths, others grew crests like horns or sails, and still others shrank into hedgehog-sized nibblers. Each was a response to the pressures of its time. The fossil record gives us glimpses, but imagination fills in the rest. And in every spike, hump, feather, and fang, we see the creativity of nature written into bone and stone. Sometimes, the strangest dinosaurs were not the largest or most frightening, but the ones that seemed to copy animals from entirely different eras. One of these was Psittacosaurus, a small, early member of the ceratopsian family, the same group that would later produce giants like Triceratops. Psittacosaurus, however, was only about 6 feet long and lived more than 100 million years before its famous relative. What made it unusual was not just its size, but the strange combination of features it carried. Its skull bore a short, parrot-like beak, perfect for clipping tough vegetation. Behind the beak were small teeth suited for grinding plants. This gave it the look of a reptile crossed with a parrot, and its name reflected that. Psittacosaurus means parrot lizard. Fossils show that it walked mostly on 2 legs, though it could drop to all 4s when needed, giving it flexibility in movement. But the most striking discovery came when paleontologists uncovered fossils with preserved skin and bristles. Along the tail of Psittacosaurus were long, quill-like structures, neither true feathers nor scales, but something in between. These quills may have been used for display, flashing color, or movement to attract mates or scare off predators. Some reconstructions show them standing like porcupine quills, turning its tail into a strange, bristled fan. Psittacosaurus was also one of the most abundant dinosaurs of its time. Dozens of fossil sites have revealed specimens, showing it thrived across large areas of Asia. Some fossils even preserve groups of juveniles together, suggesting that Psittacosaurus may have cared for its young, keeping them in groups for protection. Picture it in life. A herd of small, parrot-beaked dinosaurs moving through the undergrowth, tails bristling with quills. They chirp and squawk to one another, flashing their tails in displays as they forage. To predators, they were food, but in numbers and with bristling defenses, they held their own. From the parrot lizard, we move to the dragon-like Cryolophosaurus, discovered in Antarctica. At first, it might sound strange to find dinosaurs in such a frozen land, but during the early Jurassic, Antarctica was warmer and covered in forests. Cryolophosaurus was one of the largest predators of its time, reaching more than 20 feet in length. What set it apart, however, was the unusual crest on its head. Running across the top of its skull was a thin, curling crest that swept sideways, like a wave of bone frozen in place. This earned it the nickname Elvosaurus, because the crest resembled a flamboyant hairstyle. Its exact purpose remains debated. It may have been used for display, to attract mates or intimidate rivals. Some suggest it could have supported bright colors, turning it into a striking visual signal in the dim light of Antarctic forests. As a predator, Cryolophosaurus had sharp teeth and strong jaws, built for hunting early sauropods and other dinosaurs that lived alongside it. Its discovery proved not only that dinosaurs lived in polar regions, but that they thrived there. Even in cold, dark winters, they adapted to survive. Imagine Cryolophosaurus stalking through a snowy forest. Its crest glows with vibrant colors as it tilts its head in a display. The silence of the polar night is broken by its roar, echoing through trees. It was a reminder that dinosaurs were not limited to tropical jungles. They were global creatures, adapted to every corner of Earth. Another dinosaur that looked almost like a myth come to life was Carnotaurus. Discovered in South America, Carnotaurus was a predator about 25 feet long. Its name means meat-eating bull, and the reason is clear when you see its skull. Above its eyes rose 2 thick horns, giving it the look of a bull crossed with a lizard. But its horns were not the only strange feature. Carnotaurus had one of the shortest snouts of any large theropod, with jaws built for quick, snapping bites rather than prolonged struggles. Its arms were comically tiny, even shorter than those of Tyrannosaurus. Some paleontologists argue they were so reduced as to be nearly useless, leaving Carnotaurus almost entirely reliant on its legs and jaws. What it lacked in arms, however, it made up for in speed. Its legs were long and muscular, suggesting it could run faster than most other large predators. Combined with its lightweight skull and deep jaws, it may have hunted by sprinting at prey and delivering rapid, slashing bites. Its skin added to the uniqueness. Fossil impressions reveal that Carnotaurus was covered in small, bumpy scales, with rows of larger bumps along its sides. Some suggest these gave it a rough, armored appearance. Combined with its horns and speed, it would have been a terrifying sight, a horned, scaled predator charging across the plains. Picture a herd of herbivores grazing. Suddenly, Carnotaurus bursts from cover, its horns tilting forward, jaws snapping as it races toward its target. With lightning speed, it delivers a series of quick bites, retreating before the prey can strike back. Not a patient hunter, but a swift and brutal one, defined as much by what it lacked as what it possessed. From Psittacosaurus with its parrot-like beak, to Cryolophosaurus with its Elvis crest, to Carnotaurus with its bull-like horns, the story of dinosaurs keeps surprising us. Each species added something new to the grand experiment of evolution. Some used display to communicate, some adapted to extreme environments, and some embraced forms that looked as though they had stepped from legend. Dinosaurs were not a single mold, but 1,000 variations. Some grew feathers, some grew sails, some shrank to the size of birds, and some became horned speed demons. Each strange feature carried meaning, whether survival, communication, or spectacle. And in each, we see that nature was never afraid to experiment. If Carnotaurus looked like a bull, another predator resembled a bird of prey exaggerated to monstrous proportions. This was Mononychus, a small, feathered dinosaur that lived during the late Cretaceous. Unlike giants such as Carnotaurus or Cryolophosaurus, Mononychus was tiny, about the size of a turkey. But what set it apart was its arms. Where most theropods had long claws or small but functional arms, Mononychus had extremely short limbs ending in a single massive claw. Its name means one claw, and the feature was unlike anything seen in other dinosaurs. The claw was stout and powerful, suggesting it wasn't for slashing prey. Instead, many paleontologists believe Mononychus used it for digging, tearing into termite mounds or insect nests much like modern anteaters. This interpretation paints Mononychus not as a predator of large animals, but as a specialist, filling a unique role in its ecosystem. Its long, slender legs suggest it was fast, darting across open ground to reach nests of insects. Its long snout and tongue may have been adapted for probing, just as anteaters and aardvarks do today. Fossil impressions reveal that Mononychus had feathers, further linking it to birds. In life, it may have looked like a strange, ground-dwelling bird with a single oversized claw on each arm. Imagine it under the moonlight, darting quickly, clawing at an insect mound before retreating with its meal. In a world of giant predators and massive herbivores, Mononychus thrived by shrinking down and specializing. From this insect-eating oddity, we turn to a dinosaur that puzzled paleontologists for decades, Oviraptor. Its name means egg thief, because when first discovered in Mongolia in the 1920s, it was found near a nest of eggs. Early researchers assumed it had been stealing them, giving it an unfortunate reputation. Later discoveries, however, revealed a very different story. Oviraptor wasn't stealing eggs, it was brooding them. Fossils show oviraptors sitting over nests, arms spread protectively, much like modern birds. Its supposed crime was actually parental care. Oviraptor was small, about 6 feet long, with a parrot-like beak and often a crest atop its head. Its jaws lacked teeth but were strong, suggesting it could crack hard food such as nuts, seeds, or shellfish. Its name, however misleading, stuck, but its behavior tells us much about how dinosaur parenting may have worked. Picture an oviraptor crouched over its nest, feathers spread wide to shield its eggs from sun and wind. Its eyes are alert, scanning for predators. When danger approaches, it hisses, spreading its arms to appear larger. This was no thief but a dedicated parent, showing how caring behaviors had deep roots in dinosaur history. While Oviraptor reveals the tenderness hidden in dinosaur life, another creature displayed sheer spectacle. That was Corythosaurus, a hadrosaur whose crest resembled the helmet of an ancient warrior. Its name means helmet lizard, and the crest rose like a tall, curved structure above its head. The crest was hollow, an extension of its nasal passages, and it likely functioned as a resonating chamber. By forcing air through the crest, Corythosaurus may have produced deep, trumpet-like calls. In herds, these sounds would have carried across great distances, allowing individuals to communicate warnings, signals, or even mating calls. The crest also likely played a role in display. With skin stretched across its surface, it may have been brightly colored, signaling identity and strength. Males and females may have had differently shaped crests, allowing them to recognize one another at a glance. Corythosaurus reached around 30 feet in length and lived in large herds, feeding on tough vegetation. Its dental batteries, hundreds of teeth packed together, made it one of the most efficient plant grinders of its time. Combined with its crest, it represented both function and form, survival through feeding, and communication through sound and sight. Picture a herd moving along a riverbank. As dawn rises, the air fills with deep, echoing calls, each crest amplifying sound into a resonant chorus. This was communication not through words, but through vibrations carried on the wind. From Mononychus with its single digging claw, to Oviraptor the misunderstood parent, to Corythosaurus with its resonant crest, we see again how dinosaurs occupied niches far beyond the stereotypes. They weren't just predators and plant eaters. They were specialists, caregivers, and communicators. The diversity of life during the Mesozoic was staggering. Each adaptation, no matter how odd it may seem to us, carried meaning for survival. A claw for digging, a beak for cracking, a crest for singing, all were tools shaped by time. And each strange tool reminds us that dinosaurs were not frozen in a single form but were ever-changing, ever-experimenting, and endlessly surprising. Among the strangest dinosaurs to ever walk the earth was Pachycephalosaurus, the dome-headed lizard. At first glance, it might not appear as bizarre as some of the horned or feathered creatures we've covered, but its skull was unlike anything else. This dinosaur, living in North America during the late Cretaceous, had a thick dome of bone on the top of its head, sometimes more than 10 inches thick. For decades, paleontologists debated the purpose of this dome. One theory suggests that Pachycephalosaurus used its head like a battering ram, slamming into rivals during fights over territory or mates. The thick dome could have absorbed shock, while reinforced neck and spine structures may have braced against the force of impact. Another theory is that the dome was a display structure, perhaps brightly colored, used to impress others rather than for combat. If they did ram heads, it would have been an incredible sight. Picture 2, Pachycephalosaurus squaring off on a hillside. They lower their heads, muscles tense, and charge forward. The sound of bone striking bone echoes across the plain as they collide, dust rising in the air. For a moment, neither backs down, each struggling for dominance. Whether for combat or display, the dome made Pachycephalosaurus one of the most iconic oddities of its time. The body of Pachycephalosaurus was otherwise fairly modest, about 15 feet long, walking on 2 legs, feeding on low plants and perhaps fruit. It had small teeth suited for a mixed diet, making it an omnivore. But its skull defined its identity, transforming it into a creature unlike any other. Another dome-headed dinosaur, Dracorex, adds even more mystery. Discovered with a skull that seemed to have spikes and knobs like a dragon, it was named Dragon King. At first, it appeared to be a separate species. But later studies suggest Dracorex may actually have been a juvenile Pachycephalosaurus. its skull still developing into the thick dome of adulthood. If so, this means that as these dinosaurs aged, their skulls changed dramatically, evolving from spiky crowns into rounded domes. This discovery highlights how much we still have to learn. Sometimes what looks like a separate species turns out to be just another life stage of a known dinosaur. Each fossil adds a new puzzle piece, reminding us that the picture of the past is always shifting. From dome heads, we move to another oddity, Dinoceras, one of the most puzzling dinosaurs ever uncovered. When its massive arms were first discovered in the 1960s, paleontologists were baffled. Each arm was over 8 feet long, with enormous claws. For years, no one knew what the rest of the animal looked like, and theories ranged from terrifying predator to giant slasher. It wasn't until decades later, when more fossils were found, that Dinoceras was finally revealed. Instead of a predator, it turned out to be a massive, duck-billed omnivore, about 36 feet long. Its head was elongated with a broad, flattened snout, almost like a duck. Its body was bulky, with a sail-like ridge of spines along its back. Its feet were broad and heavy, adapted for walking in wetlands. And of course, its enormous arms ended in huge claws, which it likely used for digging, pulling vegetation, or foraging in riverbeds. The final picture was unlike any other dinosaur. Dinoceras looked like a bizarre mix of traits, part duck, part camel, part giant-armed sloth. It fed on plants, but stomach contents revealed fish bones, suggesting it was opportunistic, eating whatever it could find. Far from the terrifying predator once imagined, it was a lumbering, bizarre omnivore that thrived in floodplains. Imagine encountering Dinoceras in life. It wades slowly through a marsh, broad feet sinking into mud. Its long arms sweep through reeds, pulling down plants with ease. Its strange humpbacked silhouette looms against the horizon, a blend of features that shouldn't work together yet do. Evolution had created something that defied neat categories, and in doing so, gave us one of the most memorable dinosaurs ever found. From the heavy domes of Pachycephalosaurus to the giant arms of Dinoceras, we are reminded again that dinosaurs were not bound by simple rules. They were a parade of strangeness, each new discovery breaking expectations. Whether ramming skulls or foraging with claws longer than a human is tall, they remind us that survival often takes unusual shapes. Each adaptation, no matter how strange, served a role. The domes of Pachycephalosaurs may have been weapons or signals. The arms of Dinoceras may have been tools for feeding in wetlands. To us, they look like oddities. To them, they were the very keys to life. And as paleontology continues, more pieces of this grand puzzle fall into place. Each bone unearthed is another glimpse into a world stranger than we can imagine, where dinosaurs ruled not through uniformity but through diversity. Some dinosaurs amazed with their sheer size, others with their strange crests or claws, but a few startled scientists by combining bird-like traits in unexpected ways. One such oddity was Gigantoraptor. Discovered in Mongolia, this dinosaur lived during the late Cretaceous and was astonishingly large for its kind. At about 26 feet long and weighing close to 2 tons, Gigantoraptor was by far the biggest member of the Oviraptorosaur family. Most Oviraptorosaurs were small to medium-sized, often compared to modern turkeys or ostriches. Gigantoraptor shattered that expectation, towering over its relatives. Despite its size, it shared many of their features: a toothless beak, long legs, and evidence of feathers. Fossils suggest it may have been covered in plumage, with large feathered arms that could have been used for display rather than flight. Its lifestyle remains debated. With no teeth, it likely fed on plants, seeds, or small animals. Its long legs hint at speed, perhaps allowing it to chase prey or escape predators. And its massive size raises another question. If it built nests like smaller Oviraptorosaurs, how could such a giant creature brood its eggs without crushing them? Perhaps it used its feathers to cover nests while standing nearby, fanning warmth over its young. Imagine encountering Gigantoraptor in its environment. A giant, feathered dinosaur striding across a plain, its long arms spreading as shimmering feathers catch the light. It was a creature that looked more like a myth than a reality, a colossal bird-like animal that defied expectations. From feathered giants, we turn to another small but strange dinosaur, Heterodontosaurus. Living in the early Jurassic of southern Africa, this little creature was only about 4 feet long. Yet it packed a variety of teeth into its tiny jaws, earning it the name different-toothed lizard. At the front of its mouth were sharp, canine-like fangs, while the back contained flat, grinding teeth. This mix suggested it was omnivorous, capable of slicing through plants, but also biting into insects or small animals. Its unusual dentition made it one of the earliest dinosaurs to experiment with varied diets, showing again how adaptable they were. Fossils of Heterodontosaurus reveal it had strong hind legs for running and short forearms that may have helped with grasping. Some reconstructions suggest it was covered in proto-feathers, giving it a fuzzy appearance. Its face, with a beak, fangs, and grinding teeth, must have looked almost comical. Picture it darting through Jurassic undergrowth, its little body nimble, sharp teeth flashing as it snaps up insects or plucks at plants. A tiny omnivore, perfectly suited to a mixed diet, and proof that even small dinosaurs carried surprises. Another dinosaur that stood out for its unique skull was Dilophosaurus. This predator, living in the early Jurassic, reached around 23 feet in length. What set it apart was the pair of thin crests running along the top of its head. These crests were fragile, too delicate for combat, and likely used for display. When first discovered, Dilophosaurus was imagined as a weak predator, but more recent studies show it was quite capable. Its jaws were long and filled with sharp teeth, and its build suggests it was a swift hunter. The crests, though, made it distinctive. In life, they may have been brightly colored, used to impress mates or signal dominance. Popular culture often portrays Dilophosaurus spitting venom and frilling its neck, but there is no evidence for this. The truth is already fascinating enough. A sleek predator with twin crests, hunting in packs or alone, moving gracefully through Jurassic landscapes. Imagine the sun glinting off its crests as it stalks prey, jaws parting in a low growl. To rivals, the crests signal strength. To us, they mark it as one of the most unusual hunters of its age. From giants like Gigantoraptor to the mixed teeth of Heterodontosaurus and the crested skull of Dilophosaurus, we see again that dinosaurs defied easy categories. They experimented with size, diet, and display in ways that still astonish us. The fossil record gives only fragments, but each fragment expands the picture of what was possible. Feathered giants, fanged omnivores, and crested predators remind us that the past was not uniform. It was diverse, dynamic, and sometimes downright strange. And yet, all these oddities worked. Each adaptation carried meaning, whether for survival, communication, or spectacle. Each species was a solution to the challenges of its world. And together, they formed the grand mosaic of life that flourished long before humans ever walked the earth. While some dinosaurs dazzled with feathers or crests, others impressed with sheer armor and bizarre adaptations for defense. One of the most unusual armored dinosaurs was Ankylosaurus, the famous living tank of the late Cretaceous. But even stranger in some ways was its earlier cousin, Polycanthus. Polycanthus lived in what is now Europe, and it carried a body covered in rows of bony plates and spikes. Along its back ran heavy armor, while its sides bristled with pointed spikes that deterred attackers. What made Polycanthus especially unusual was the large shield of fused bone covering its hips, a single, massive plate that reinforced its defense. Combined with smaller osteoderms along its body, this shield gave it a distinctive appearance, like a knight carrying a built-in shield across its back. Unlike Ankylosaurus, Polycanthus didn't have a tail club. Instead, it relied on its spikes and armor to discourage predators. Walking low to the ground, feeding on ferns and cycads, It depended on its defenses to survive. Imagine a predator like a large theropod circling, searching for an opening. All it would see was armor and spikes, with no weak point to attack. The cost of hunting Polycanthus outweighed the reward. From armored herbivores, we moved to one of the most flamboyant plant eaters, Lambeosaurus. A hadrosaur from North America, Lambeosaurus was famous for its strange, hatchet-shaped crest. Unlike the helmet crest of Corythosaurus, Lambeosaurus's crest rose sharply before flattening out like a blade. Inside, it contained hollow chambers connected to the nasal passages, allowing it to make resonant calls. The exact sounds Lambeosaurus produced remain uncertain, but paleontologists believe they may have ranged from deep, foghorn-like notes to higher trumpeting calls. In herds, these sounds carried across landscapes, helping the dinosaurs communicate over distance. The crest was also a display structure, likely brightly colored, giving Lambeosaurus a striking profile as it moved through forests and plains. Picture a group of Lambeosaurus by a river. Their crests flash in the sunlight, brilliant against green vegetation. Suddenly, one exhales and a long, hollow note echoes through the air, answered by others in chorus. To rivals, it's a warning. To mates, it's a song of attraction. To us, it's another reminder of how dinosaurs lived in a world rich with sound and color. Another hadrosaur, Parasaurolophus, took the crest idea even further. Its tube-shaped crest curved backward in a long arc, like a backward horn. This crest, too, contained passages for sound, but they were longer, allowing Parasaurolophus to produce deep, resonant tones that may have sounded almost musical. Fossil reconstructions suggest each species of Parasaurolophus had slightly different crest shapes, meaning their calls may have been distinct, each herd with its own unique voice. Parasaurolophus was around 30 feet long, feeding on tough plants. In herds, their combined calls must have been overwhelming, a deep, haunting chorus rolling across valleys. Imagine standing in a late Cretaceous forest at dawn, hearing dozens of Parasaurolophus singing together, their calls vibrating in your chest. From armored spikes to resonant crests, these dinosaurs show how survival was more than just claws and teeth. For some, it meant armor thick enough to break predator teeth. For others, it meant sound, communication, and spectacle. But strangeness was not limited to plant eaters. Even among predators, oddities abounded. Take Majungasaurus, a theropod from Madagascar. At about 20 feet long, it wasn't the largest predator, but it was one of the strangest. Its skull was short and thick, with a blunt snout, unlike the long, sleek jaws of other predators. It had tiny arms, even smaller than those of Tyrannosaurus, and on its forehead rose a single, low horn. What made Majungasaurus truly bizarre, however, was its behavior. Fossil evidence shows bite marks on the bones of other Majungasaurus individuals, suggesting it practiced cannibalism. Whether this was from hunting or scavenging isn't clear, but it paints a picture of a predator that sometimes turned on its own kind. Imagine it prowling through forests, horn catching the light, jaws ready to bite not just prey animals but even rivals. Its cannibalistic habits may seem shocking, but in harsh ecosystems, survival often pushed predators into desperate strategies. From the shielded Polycanthus to the singing Lambeosaurus, from the horned Parasaurolophus to the cannibalistic Majungasaurus, we see that strangeness took many forms. Armor, crests, and even behavior could all mark a species as unusual. Each one carved its own path, surviving in worlds as diverse as wetlands, plains, and forests. Dinosaurs were never a single story. They were 1,000 stories, told through bone, skin, and fossilized trace. And in every strange crest, every armored plate, every unexpected behavior, we glimpse the endless creativity of evolution. As the age of dinosaurs drew toward its end, evolution continued producing creatures that defied expectations. Some grew stranger with display structures, others with new forms of armor, and still others with adaptations that blurred the line between bird and reptile. One remarkable example was Troodon, a small but highly intelligent dinosaur of the late Cretaceous. Troodon was lightly built, about 8 feet long, with long legs and grasping hands. What set it apart was its brain. Relative to body size, Troodon had one of the largest brains of any dinosaur. Its eyes were large and forward-facing, suggesting keen vision and depth perception, perhaps even night vision. Its teeth were serrated but small, suited for an omnivorous diet of plants, insects, and small animals. With its agility and intelligence, Troodon may have been one of the most adaptable dinosaurs of its time. Some paleontologists speculate about how advanced it might have become had dinosaurs not gone extinct. Could intelligence like ours have eventually developed in a dinosaur lineage? It remains speculation, but Troodon shows that dinosaurs were not mindless creatures. They were thinkers, problem solvers, and opportunists. Picture it darting across a moonlit plain, eyes glowing in the dark, brain alive with awareness. It pauses to snatch a lizard, then turns to pluck fruit from a low branch. Alert, cautious, clever, Troodon embodied the idea that survival sometimes depended on brains as much as brawn. Another late Cretaceous oddity was the Rhizinosaurus, already touched upon earlier, but worth revisiting as one of the most extraordinary dinosaurs ever discovered. At over 30 feet long, this bizarre herbivore had a small head, long neck, pot-bellied body, and enormous arms ending in scythe-like claws up to 3 feet long. Its appearance was almost nightmarish, a hulking creature with claws longer than swords, and yet it was a plant eater. Its claws may have been used to pull down branches, defend against predators, or even for display. Combined with feathers covering its body, the Rhizinosaurus looked like nothing else in the dinosaur world. Part sloth, part bird, part reptile. Imagine standing in its shadow. Its neck rises above you, beak snapping at leaves. Suddenly, it spreads its arms wide, claws gleaming like polished blades. Not a predator, but intimidating all the same. The Rhizinosaurus stands as proof that appearances can deceive. In contrast to the Rhizinosaurus's massive claws, another dinosaur showcased strangeness in its headgear. Stygimoloch, a relative of Pachycephalosaurus, had a dome-shaped skull lined with long, sharp horns. Its name means demon from the Styx, and its skull certainly fit the part. The dome may have been used for head-butting, while the horns added intimidation. In life, it must have looked like a dragon, horns curving in all directions as it lowered its head in challenge. Though once thought to be a separate species, many scientists now believe Stygimoloch may simply have been a younger form of Pachycephalosaurus, its horns shrinking and dome thickening with age. Whether juvenile or adult, it captured imaginations as a horned, dome-headed beast that seemed drawn from mythology. As we near the close of the dinosaur era, another giant deserves mention: Spinosaurus. Among the largest predators ever, Spinosaurus reached lengths of over 50 feet. But it was unlike other giant theropods. Instead of chasing prey on land, Spinosaurus adapted to life in water. Its body carried a massive sail of spines, rising from its back like the fins of a colossal fish. Its snout was long and crocodile-like, filled with conical teeth perfect for catching slippery prey. Its limbs were adapted for swimming, with paddle-like feet and a long, powerful tail that may have acted like a rudder. Fossil evidence suggests Spinosaurus hunted in rivers and lakes, feeding on fish and aquatic animals. Picture it wading through a swamp, sail rising high above reeds. With a sudden plunge, its jaws snap shut around a struggling fish. Then it slides into deeper water, swimming with its long tail. Neither fully land predator nor fish, Spinosaurus was something in between, an aquatic hunter unlike any other dinosaur. Strangeness continued even among the smaller species. Microraptor, a tiny predator from China, carried feathers not just on its arms but also on its legs. This gave it 4 wings, allowing it to glide between trees. It may not have been capable of true flight like modern birds, but it could soar short distances, using its feathered limbs to maneuver. Its black, iridescent feathers shimmered in light, giving it a glossy, crow-like appearance. Imagine a small, four-winged predator darting through forests, gliding silently onto its prey. It was a living experiment in the evolution of flight, one of many steps that would eventually lead to birds. From Microraptor's wings to Spinosaurus's sail, from Stygimoloch's horns to the Rhizinosaurus's claws, dinosaurs displayed forms stranger than fiction. Each one pushed the limits of what was possible, finding survival in shapes we might never expect. And then, 66 million years ago, it all came to an end. A massive asteroid struck Earth, unleashing firestorms, tsunamis, and a global winter. Most dinosaurs perished, leaving only their bird descendants to carry their legacy forward. Yet the strangeness of dinosaurs remains alive in the fossils they left behind. Each discovery pulls back the curtain on a world of experimentation, a world where claws could reach the length of swords, brains could rival modern birds, and bodies could stretch into shapes never seen again. When we look at these fossils today, we don't just see bones. We see stories of survival, of adaptation, of the endless creativity of evolution. The weirdest dinosaurs remind us that life is not bound by what seems normal. It is free to explore, to innovate, to become as strange as it needs to be. And in their strangeness, we see beauty. A beauty that endures, carried in stone, in science, and in imagination. These creatures may be gone, but their legacy remains. Every feather, horn, claw, and sail reminding us that the history of life is a story far more fantastic than anything we could invent. So, as you drift into sleep tonight with the images of these dinosaurs in your mind, remember, the world once belonged to creatures stranger than dragons, louder than trumpets, and more armored than tanks. And though they are gone, their echoes remain, whispering through time. Take care, and we'll see you in the next story.